2025. It is 7 p.m. or 7:03, my apologies. My name is Meg McGrath-Smith. I'm the chair of Charter and Rules. To my right is Councilor Linda Vacan, also a member of our committee. And our second member, or a third member of our three-member committee is Council President Tessa Murphy-Ramboletti, and she communicated that she is on her way. We'll be here within about 10 minutes, coming from a work requirement in the evening. In chambers, we're also joined by Councilor Patty Devine and also by Councilor Vacan and Councilor Ocasio. Our meeting is taking place here physically at Holyoke City Hall in City Hall chambers. It's also available remotely on Zoom or on Channel 15. And in both locations, you're able to get live Spanish interpretation. And thank you so much to our interpreters tonight.
Motion to take up item 1.
All right, motion to take up item 1. I will second that. All in favor? Aye. Item 1, this is from Kevin Jourdain, ordered that the City Council adopt the attached special act to remove future fire chiefs from civil service for the purpose of preserving the long-standing residency requirement for our fire chief as embodied in our ordinances. And I would love to defer to the maker of the order to initially give us some framing. And I also see that we are joined by a member of the Fire Commission, Jeffrey Trask. He may also want to weigh in before we begin our general conversation. All right, so Councilor Jourdain.
Thank you. So I was glad Commissioner Trask could join. I think their perspective will be very helpful, and I wanted to make sure some of the fire commissioners, so I wanted to give them a heads up that we're going to be talking about this, because I think this proposal will give a lot more power and flexibility to the fire commission. This is going to be very helpful. While I point out the residency issue, there's actually a lot of reasons why we would want to do this. The first thing is, I should just, by way of background and history, the fire chief was placed into Civil Service Commission in 1917 under a special act that the city of Holyoke had passed 100 plus years ago. And at certain times, we've discussed removing it. We just never got around to it. I think the closest it came, we ended up never even I withdrew the proposal, but we did a major rewrite of the residency rules, myself, Kara Cunha, and Lisa Ball, on relative to the fire department generally, including the fire chief. And at that time, we did not decide to go forward. We didn't think it was altogether we should do it at that time. In retrospect, I kind of wish we kind of had, but that was in 2011. Okay, so this is the last, it's been 14 years since we've kind of really given this a real look, and I wanted to come forward with the proposal because I think since we, in the spirit of all the modernization and all the things that we're doing. The other thing that kind of made me focus on this as an important issue is really the great luck we've been having with police chief, and to replicate a system that would allow us to select the fire chief like we select the police chief. That is to say, we have someone governed under a contract, is picked, has all the conditions of their employment in a contract, and that system is working well. And it proof positive, we got Chief Keenan, who's phenomenal, and I think he's going to make a huge impact on the department. So some of the pros of why to do this. The first one would be to preserve residency. There's a recent understanding, and I'm hoping the law department will continue to revisit this, and I think they're working through it, is if you go to the city ordinances on residency, as well as, we'll just say with the ordinance, fire chief, 100%, it's black letter law of Holyoke, has to be a resident of Holyoke. We've always had a fire chief that's been a resident of Holyoke. That was my understanding. There wasn't going to be any issue. Now we have, as I understand it, a fire chief who doesn't live in Holyoke and hasn't lived in Holyoke for 3 years now. 2022, the current fire chief, as I understand it, got the job, and it's now 2025, and it's my understanding he still doesn't live in Holyoke. And I'm welcome to stand me corrected if that is not true, but that is my understanding. He still does not live in Holyoke. I asked him about it when he was selected at a budget hearing in 2022, and it was my understanding at that time, he stated that he had a year to move into the city. 3 years later, I don't believe the move has occurred. I'm understanding that allegedly there's a possibility, the view is that civil service allows firefighters to live within a 10 or 15 mile radius, and that there may be potential hanging of the hat, if you will, on that rule to avoid our residency rule. So that's only one piece of this, though, okay? If we didn't have that civil service issue, we could just have it just like we have it with the police chief. You're a resident, always has been a resident. No fire chief has never not been a resident since time immemorial. Everybody always a resident. Okay, that would fix that issue. Second issue, the fire commission right today is effectively limited in who they can select to be fire chief just to the current deputy chiefs effectively in the Holyoke Fire Department. If we were to eliminate this rule, they would be able to select anybody that they deemed worthy to be the fire chief. They also would be able to use the criteria that they deem appropriate as appointees in consultation with the mayor to select the fire chief that they believe is most qualified. They could use a screening committee. I mean, go through the whole process, replicate the process that we have for police chief, and they could do the interviews, the waiting, the whole nine, and pick who they think is best. Currently, is a point system, and if you don't follow the point system through civil service, you have to justify like extraordinarily why you didn't pick that civil service rated point system highest person. And I don't think that's necessarily automatically going to render the best candidate. And it really ties the hands of the fire commission as to selecting who they think is the best person to be. So that's the hiring. So that's coming in. The third reason would be any sort of discipline, terminations, any of that would be governed under a contract. You wouldn't have a fire chief who's the leader of your organization being quote unquote protected under the civil service and appealing it through civil service and going through that whole rigmarole if they got a bad apple that they needed to either discipline or terminate. So for all of those reasons, this is just really something that we should have done years ago. We just never did. And as a result, I think this is a long time coming. It fixes a lot of issues. However, having said all those things, I grandfather in this proposal the current fire chief. That's what he came in as. I wouldn't take away his civil service status. This would only be for future fire chiefs and for the next time that they have to select a fire chief. So I think it builds in the protections for the incumbent, and at the meanwhile, it gives us the flexibility to make the changes for the future. So for all those reasons, I would love Commissioner Trask's perspective on it, or anybody else that would like to weigh in, or the law department, or whomever.
Yeah.
I think it just gives us a lot more flexibility and brings us up to snuff. Thank you.
Hi,
Thank
can you hear
you.
me? This is,
Yes, I'd love to hear from Jeffrey Trask and also George Meddy. Thank you so much for
George
joining
is here,
us.
good.
And I also want to name that Patty Devine is a longtime, was a former fire commissioner, so I'd love to hear her experience as well. Jeffrey Trask and George Meddy, who would love to speak first?
I'd like to, can you hear me? This is George Meddy.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I have to agree with Councilman Jordan. I do believe it would give us a lot more flexibility in hiring and promoting a fire chief. I think we're somewhat limited this last selection. Although we had two really decent candidates, one dropped out, so we had one left, but there were two good candidates. So our current chief is serving and doing well in his position. And the prior chiefs that I've been associated with, Jeff Preskopowski and John Pond, they both served really well in their positions. But I do believe I was a federal manager with 10 supervisors and 400 people, and I understand how difficult it is to try to discharge somebody when they're not performing. It's almost impossible. So I do believe this would be good for the city, long as we keep patronage out of it. That's the concern that I would have is patronage, the politics of it, to keep that away from this process. I certainly concur with the councilman in his proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Meddy.
Excuse me, I don't know what to say about it. It does reduce the job security, but I mean, performance is always key. You have to perform, and there should be some way of addressing that if somebody's not performing. Under civil service, it just makes it very, very difficult. We just went through a process of disciplining someone, reducing them in rank, and that took pretty much over a year to finally have a finding that agreed with us. So
Thank you,
yes, I think it's a great idea.
Thank you. Jeffrey Trask, would you also like to speak?
Yeah, sure. No, I definitely agree with with Commissioner Meddy on his points, and Councilman Jordan on his points. Yeah, I mean, it gives us the flexibility to hire, again, a candidate that is most qualified, and use the various mechanisms that are at our disposal in order to do that. I just want to address the patronage point. I think that's the beauty of the Fire Commission is that, most of us have been serving multiple years. We were appointed by different mayors, and I think that by having a commission, that decision is left in the hands of three civilians that represent, potentially different political opinions. So, hopefully that'll be enough in order to ensure that the patronage is addressed. So yeah, I mean, I can't argue with either individual's points on this matter, and look forward to seeing what the council ultimately decides.
Thank you. Councilor Devine?
Yeah, thank you. I agree with Kevin on this particular thing. And you're just talking fire chiefs, you're not talking, because firefighters in their collective bargaining agreement has to do with the mileage, how far away from the city they live.
Right.
So I'm glad you're not touching that. I'm trying to remember, and I asked Kevin tonight when he was here, I was one of the ones that appointed Chief Pond, and he had to move into the city. And apparently that doesn't happen anymore because of civil service, or I can't, I'm trying to remember, it was so long ago, if Chief Pond was even on a list. He had to have been. And for anybody who may not know about civil service lists, it's really unbelievable. If you have somebody, say in a different city, who has been laid off, they're number one. Then you have veterans, maybe number two. So it really, and then if you go to say that the chief that you want is number 4 on the list, you better have a real good reason, I think George mentioned this, why you're picking that one over the top 3. And you're hoping that civil service will come back and say, you're right, instead of saying, you're wrong. So I agree. I think it's time to get the chief out of there.
Yeah, John Pond is in the city.
I'm sorry, Mr. Meddy, can you repeat that?
Yeah, John Pond did move to the city. He lives near me in West Holyoke.
Yeah,
Thank you.
right.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this topic? It seems like we're driving to a fair consensus. Yes, Councilor Bacon.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve this and adopt the special act to remove future fire chiefs from civil service.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, I'd entertain a motion to take up item 2.
I'd like to make a motion to suspend rules and take up items 2, 3, and 4 as a package. They're all on the same rule.
Do you want to take up 3 and 4? Looks like they're late files. Item 2 seems like it's a correction to an earlier rule that we amended around email notification. It looks slightly different to me, unless I'm misunderstanding it.
Either way,
Can we take up
you
item-
just want to take 2 separately?
if we could, and then 3 and 4 together as a package?
All right, I'll make a motion to take up item 2.
Okay, second, all in favor, aye. Item 2 from Councilor Bartley, City Council Rule 4. Jeffrey, could you bring Rule 4 up for us on the screen?
Sure.
Rule 4.
So add the following sentence to the end of the first paragraph of Rule 4B. So long as it is in writing to the clerk, any member may opt out of having his or her agenda sent via U.S. mail and instead may have the agenda sent via electronic mail, personal delivery by the administrative assistant, or not at all. Said decision shall remain in force until the clerk is otherwise notified in writing by the member. Under discussion. So, I'm just bringing up my own copy of the rules on my computer.
So is the substantive change just in writing to opt out of receiving it by email? Is that the change?
That's a good question. I'm waiting for Jeff to bring it up. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, I think it's automatic now. This would sort of create an opt-out,
But you have to put it in writing.
put it in writing, yeah.
Okay. 4B. Okay. So we had worked to revise 4B so that it said, no order, request, resolution, or other form of business shall be presented to the city council except as provided below, unless a true copy of same shall have been filed in the office of the city clerk on or before 12 o'clock in the afternoon of the last Friday before the regular meeting of the council, provided that if any Friday shall fall on a legal holiday, or in the case of the Monday prior to a council meeting is a holiday, or upon the request of the clerk, such order, request, resolution, or other business shall be filed on the last Thursday before the regular meeting. The city clerk shall, at least 48 hours prior to the regular meeting, prepare an agenda summarizing or identifying each order, request, resolution, or other form of business and mail a true copy thereof to each member of the city council at their last and usual place of abode. So if my memory serves me, and I had reached out to Councilor Bartley yesterday, we had earlier taken on the concept of shifting what we were going to do with special meeting notifications. And I think one of the things that came out of that is councilors wanting to name, I may not want something delivered to my house anymore. I may be fine with an electronic communication. I will say that 4B does go on quite a bit. And it says at the last line, but I wonder if we want to include it actually after that first paragraph that I just read.
That's what he's
Because-
requesting.
Okay. Oh, at the end of the first paragraph. Perfect. Okay. Because everything else is really addressing late files. Any discussion on this? Do we feel comfortable with the language as is, as proposed?
Seems all right.
It makes sense to me.
You're on item 2 still?
It's just making it match
item
the
2.
special meeting notice.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay.
Item 2 by adding that one sentence. Oh, wait a minute, it goes on and it.
2 sentences, I go.
Yeah. The sentence is as named under item 2 proposed by Bartley. I'll second that. Any further discussion or questions? Okay, hearing none. Sorry, yes, Counselor Devine,
I think
absolutely.
I had talked about this before, where you have personal delivery by the administrative assistant. He's gonna have to get mileage. I
Yeah,
brought that up before.
it is a question for if we are okay with that being an option.
It's going to come up rarely.
It's true, but a counselor technically on principle could say, I really want all of them delivered to my house. And I know from what you've said before, Counselor Jordan, that the city messenger was a role. This was something that did happen.
That's the way it used to be, yeah.
But I know that it is very different now.
Travel policy, to Patty's point,
Really
travel
does
policy
exist now.
technically would allow him to be eligible for mileage.
Right.
Yep.
So, you know,
If he couldn't, if he
Okay.
wanted to do it in the middle and not on the way, he could put in for mileage.
Do we think that counselors really should be able to request it? I guess is my question.
I would just take that out.
Or is it okay to say you can either have it mailed to your house, or you can?
did the charter change go through? Because I think that's where that's stemming from. I think the charter change still required.
We're
the first-
sending that as part of the home rule petition.
It's tabled, I think.
It's
in
tabled.
council right now.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. Because that's where the personal delivery's coming from.
Right.
I think the old rule said something like personal delivery within a day or, yeah.
So the other problem was that sometimes the meetings are called with very, very short notice, and they couldn't get it in the mail.
Well, I think this is for a regular meeting. I understood why we included the personal delivery option for special meetings where it could be very fast, although we did test it, thankfully, to our amazing assistant who decided to go to the post office and determine exactly how long it would take to mail something by local delivery only. Love that. And was able to discover that you could do it within 48 hours if you went to the counter and said this is for local delivery only. So it would not go to Hartford and then bounce back. That being said, for a special meeting, I do understand that there could be a counselor saying, I'm nervous about not getting things in the mail. Please, could you personally deliver those to me? But for a regular meeting, which you know is coming, it seems unlikely that it could be needed. I just think, not that I think anyone on current council would do this, but on principle, someone could do it just to annoy someone. I would hate to see that happen. Do we see it as a real purpose, a real need?
The only way you'll ever have personal delivery is if the mayor or the council president called a special meeting because some emergency came up and it was too short. Like theoretically, this could be 6 hours notice because some catastrophe in the city happened
Yeah.
and they have to assemble the city council. That's the only time you would have it.
But wouldn't that be under special meetings instead of here, which is regular meetings?
Yeah, I agree.
That would be special.
I
Because we
agree.
did include hand delivery as an option under
What-
special meetings.
I'm fine either way. Whatever you want to do is fine with me.
I'm fine, as long as he gets
Okay.
mileage if he has to do it.
That's right.
I would personally love to see that section removed for personal delivery, only because I don't see it as a real need
For regular meetings.
for regular meetings,
Yeah, just do it for special then.
Yeah.
if that's okay.
Because you're supposed to give 48-hour notice for regular meetings anyways, under open
Right.
meeting law.
Yeah, it's required. Or you can't meet.
You okay with that, or what do you think?
The only thing I'm thinking about is if the agenda isn't done until Friday at noon, and it doesn't get to the post office until later in the day,
Okay.
and then it doesn't go on Saturday. Just to be reasonably certain it would arrive. I do understand what was said about the local mail option, which should speed it up considerably. But I do think somebody should be able to opt for a paper option.
Well, the personal
Which-
delivery and paper option is not the same thing.
Well, but it's the only paper option in this language.
Oh, this just says that if you don't want it to be mailed to your house with it,
No, so basically, we're saying, send everything to us by email, unless we say in writing, if we make those other changes, right? Because that's how we're getting it now. And then the clerk is mailing us the agenda, but we're getting it all email first, right? I mean, I am. I don't know if everybody else is.
It says, so long as it is in writing to the clerk, any member may opt out of having his or her agenda sent via U.S. mail, and instead may have the agenda sent via electronic mail. I think that just says if you are comfortable having it not sent to your house. I think I would probably opt into this, because I unfortunately get frustrated having this paper copy that I look at, and then because there's been shifts or changes, I come in on Tuesday and it's no longer relevant. I need to get the new printed one anyway. I would rather just be in the habit of printing it myself at home or just referring to it on my computer. Other people may really like the printed copy. I have the feeling too that our assistant will continue to have printed copies if something in the agenda changes.
Yeah, I guess I don't really have a strong feeling about it either way. Right now, the way it's written, it will continue to come in writing unless you say, send it to me by email in writing. Correct?
Unless you
If I'm
opt
reading
out.
the way
Yeah.
Counselor Bartley wrote this.
Correct.
Unless you opt out of it being sent to you by mail, it will continue to be sent to you by
And we
mail.
have to do that in writing?
Yes.
Brenna?
If you-
Okay.
So
Counselor
that would
Garcia?
preserve the paper for those who,
Absolutely.
I
Yes.
can only think of one or two who like it
I
that way,
will
but
say, just.
Paper will continue being the standard option
it's written
unless
a
you're
little
opting
awkwardly,
out of it.
is all it's sort of.
The agenda, something.
I do also see Counselor Casio's hand. Counselor?
Good evening. I'm one of those counselors that receive the agenda in the mail, and I would like to continue to receive it in the mail,
Yeah.
no matter what happens here. You know, I do get it on my cell phone through email, but I also would like a paper copy.
Yep.
So I can really, take my time and read it.
Absolutely.
Other people don't. Counselor Greenie also need the same thing too.
Right. Some people just prefer to read it on
I like
paper.
getting it
And
in
this
mail
would still
myself.
allow, as the standard option, everyone would receive it in the mail unless they choose to opt out of that.
Okay, but sometimes now it's starting all over again. Like Jeffrey does a great job. Either taking it to the post office or however he does it. But sometimes I receive it that Saturday. Like if you put it in the mail Friday, I receive it that Saturday. But there's other times that I don't receive it that Saturday. I receive it the day of.
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
So,
That happens.
because sometimes
Yeah.
if he takes it directly into the post office that Friday, I'll get it the next day. But I don't know what happens, in between that I get it. It goes to
Tuesday?
Connecticut, it goes
Right.
to Hartford, and then it comes back.
Jeffrey, can I ask a question? Are
Yeah,
you-
actually, I was
Are you-
gonna offer a
Yeah.
thought anyway,
I'm
so go ahead.
wondering if you are always sending it through the local option at this point?
So the subcommittee meetings, for those who want them mailed to them, which are Councilors Ocasio, Graney, and Jordan, I'm taking those to the post office and dropping them off at the counter, and I try to do that on Friday so that I can send all of the agendas for the following week all at once. It's actually the city clerk's office that's putting the agendas in the mail for full council meetings. I did inform them of the ability to get them to people faster by dropping it off at the post office, but I have a sense that they're still putting it in the mailbox here at City Hall, which gets picked up at 3:00 every day. And I
Which is
think
late
by
on a
doing
Friday.
that, they're having that agenda routed through Hartford.
Well, I wonder if maybe a next step then, and that's a little bit different from what we have in front of us, but is just having a conversation with the clerk around if they could start using the local option. It will get folks their agendas in a more timely manner. It didn't used to get rerouted through Hartford. That's new. What, as of 3 years ago? 4 years ago?
Quite a while now,
Yeah.
So-
And they're losing mail.
because they closed the
unfortunately, all
bulk
the
mail
time.
in Springfield a long time ago.
Right. And so maybe that's something we can reach out to the city clerk on. That might be a separate order.
She'd have to send somebody over to the post office, which they're not currently doing.
Correct.
Yeah, sometimes I get it, not Tuesday, I get it Wednesday with the other one.
Which is really problematic. So I do think that needs to be addressed for sure.
And that may be why that other option was left in there. I'm not really sure of what the thinking was.
I would be more comfortable with adding language, although maybe it's just a separate order. And that, that would bring in the clerk to have that conversation. But maybe it's a separate order that, brings us to a place where we add a line around agendas need to be sent using local mail.
Maybe that's a separate issue.
Yeah, it strikes me as it would need to be a different order because it's
Yeah.
really substantially different in spirit. We'd also, I think, want to include the clerk in that conversation.
But we could do this one.
Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to make a friendly amendment.
Just quickly,
Yes.
a question. Under this, and maybe Kevin knows, I'm not sure, or Linda, is the clerk obligated to follow our rules? Maybe we need to find that out.
This is
from
under
the
section
law
4, city
department.
clerk, so
I'm sorry?
this is under section 4, city clerk, so I believe so.
Okay.
The only other thing I would say is we're paying her $4,000 a year to do this.
Okay.
So I would hope if
That's the
she's,
stipend.
she gets a special stipend. for
Okay, I
this.
didn't realize that, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think
Theoretically,
I would love to make a friendly amendment to remove personal delivery, everything from the comma to the end of that period there, from personal delivery to not at all.
So,
If it's the will of the body, if you're not comfortable, that's okay.
well, what I was thinking is not to make it an equal choice, but if somebody had repeated problems receiving the mailed agenda in enough time for the council meeting, that they would have some other option.
Yeah.
Like if somebody's getting it always on the day of or even the day after, that would be problematic. I mean, I know pretty much everybody in the world
Yeah.
now has email, but
No, but not everyone does, and also,
you can't assume, right?
Right. But I think that's why I want to address it in a different order around the local mail, because that does resolve that issue.
how about we keep it in as a compromise? I tend to agree with you, Meg, but I would say maybe keep it in, but then on your next order, propose to talk about maybe if we
Removing
have
that.
local delivery, then
Yeah.
that could be
Okay.
deleted at that time. I
That's
don't
a
know.
fair compromise.
I agree.
I-
It does seem odd the way it's written to say, I don't want mail, but I'm opting into personal delivery for every regular meeting agenda. Like, that is that's a heavy ask of the clerk to say,
Yeah.
to say that the city clerk has to come to my house for every regular agenda item. I don't think we mean that.
And if
but-
somebody's on vacation.
Exactly, yeah.
Yes.
So the thought that I had would be to make that only if there are ongoing problems with
Right.
delivery, then a counselor could opt into a personal delivery, not make it equal with the mailing.
Yeah.
Just
That-
make it as a backup plan if there's some unknown problem that develops, like somebody's not getting their mail.
Right,
Because that has happened to people
Yeah.
on occasion.
sure.
But, so make a separate sentence.
There's something funky about actually where it says personal delivery by the administrative assistant or not at all.
Right, so
What does that mean?
You don't get an agenda at
You
all.
can't opt out of it. I don't think you can opt.
long
I don't
as
think that's the
it's
spirit of it. I don't think that's what he
writing to the
means.
clerk. Any member
I just
may
did,
opt
because I
out
get it
of
online,
having
and I print it up.
his or her
I just sent
agenda
Brenna
sent
an opt-out.
via US mail.
But the first one is you're getting it
And
by
instead may have
email.
the agenda sent via electronic mail. Period.
So just say sent via electronic mail
Period.
or personal delivery by the
Period.
administrative assistant.
No, I would just say
If-
period after electronic mail. And then say personal delivery by the administrative assistant may occur in circumstances where mail delivery is problematic. Timely mail delivery is problematic.
Yeah.
So it's
Or
it's
has
like an
been, yeah.
appeal option.
Right.
Not an
Last
equal
resort.
option.
Yeah, last resort.
Yeah.
Okay. So may occur in situations where consistent mail delivery, consistent and timely.
Mail delivery
Mail
is
delivery.
problematic.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't make it even with,
Yeah, I like that.
yeah. And then not at all, it doesn't make sense to me.
Okay.
And can I, one more thing? Where it says, until the clerk is otherwise notified in writing?
Yes.
Does it have to be in writing, or can it be an email?
I think in writing is an email.
Oh, well, make sure that's what you
Yeah,
mean,
put in, right,
writing or email.
In writing,
Because
because
I took it
email's
to
a form
mean
of
I
writing.
have to handwrite it out.
and put, or just add a little clause that says email is acceptable.
Yeah,
as a
something
rating,
like that.
Something like that.
Right, I mean, the key thing being you're opting into the email. It's not a default.
Exactly.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve as amended.
I will second that. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion to take up items 3 and 4 as a package.
Second.
And 3 and 4 both address late files. Item 3 is from Bartley. City Council Rule 4 is hereby amended as followed. Add the following paragraph to the end of the Rule 4B. For the sake of public transparency, late filed orders as defined herein may be added to the already published regular agenda and presented A, to the members at the regular meeting by offering printed copies and by remittance to the members by way of electronic mail. And the same shall be sent no later than 1 p.m. on the day the regular meeting is scheduled. And B, to the public via the city website, and the same shall be posted no later than 1 p.m. of the day of a regular city council meeting. In any event, late filed orders may not be appended the regular agenda unless for good cause, and so long as written approval from both the clerk and the president is presented to the members before the regular meeting. Said writing shall be presented to the members at the regular meeting and shall include reasons explaining the good cause and signatures of both the clerk and the president. Item 4 has a different take. Jordan Council Rules be amended to ban outright all late filed orders, communications, and any other business of the council unless it is a matter of absolute emergency to the city and no member objects. Councilor Bacon.
Okay, so for item 3, I find it contradictory and confusing. Because the open meeting law requires 48-hour notice. We cannot, by a rule, change it till 1 p.m. the day of the meeting. And to me, that seems like what we're trying to say here. So you could get it on till 1 p.m., but not after that. I'm not understanding the logic of that. And it says, may be added to the already published regular agenda in sentence 3, and then as you proceed on, it says may not be appended to the regular agenda unless all those stipulations at the end. So personally, I really like item 4 a lot better because I think late files have been used and abused greatly for a number of reasons. So, however, I would be warm to, under item 4, unless it's a matter of absolute emergency to the city and no member objects. I don't know, I'm actually good with that.
We have the ability to suspend our own rules, and I feel like my cynical take on late files, I think that we should discourage them, but I also feel like we're very likely in the moment when someone is saying, we need to take this up right now, no matter what we do, to suspend the rules in order to take it up. I also feel like a lot of the times it's such a mix. I was going back through and being like, what are our late files? Just as like a rule of thumb. Is it always the same kind of thing again and again, or are there patterns? And some of it is information is coming slowly from department heads or from, city, groups who are trying to give us information that we've requested or that they think is in a timely way has to get moved on. Other stuff just seems like, I don't know why the person didn't meet the deadline. I'm not sure what prevented this person from getting it in, by noon. So it is a real mix of what's coming in front of us in terms of late files. Councilor Devine, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I agree. Item 3 is very confusing to me. Item 4, I like much better, and I just have a question on where it says, unless it's a matter of absolute emergency to the city and no member objects. When would the member object? That night?
Yeah.
Because maybe we take that out. Because we've already seen it, if it's on our agenda.
Well, I think if I may, Madam Chair, I was going to say, I think it's the no member objects because this is, in my opinion, polices the absolute emergency. Because otherwise, people are going to say, oh, this is an absolute emergency. Because basically, our rules right now say you're only supposed to be doing late files if it's an emergency. And right now, it's just sort of left up to this nebulous discretion. This would give it some teeth. Like, it's going to have to really be an emergency. Like, something's burned down and it's, like, and if we don't give them the money, that ain't coming up, like they can't fix it. So this way it would be that evening, nobody objects. That means everybody's unanimous that this is an obvious emergency. And so, but it gives the power of anybody on the council to say, no, that's not an emergency. And then it goes on as on the next agenda.
Okay.
So that this way it keeps us all honest. And this way nobody can say they're just putting things in there because the current rule says emergency and it ain't working because we're still getting tons and tons of these things. And it used to be even worse. Now it's down to just bad. And now we need to get to good. And so that's why I filed, and quite frankly, and she's not here, but I'll give her credit too, Tessa, this is kind of where she was coming from. Like, we should just say to hell with these, right? And really, it's got to be really like a really strict rule. So in the spirit of the president, and I feel the same way as her, that these should be like, it's going to be an emergency that no one in the room is going to doubt. It's obvious, fire truck gets into a crash or the pump blows on a fire truck and they're coming in with an emergency order to buy the next fire truck. Or I'm just using these hypotheticals. Or building collapses and they need 10 grand to do the emergency cleanup, or it's going to be these obvious things. Other than that, I think what's basically happening is bad habits. It's just people aren't getting the stuff to noon to Brenna on the Friday, and the stuff's coming in over the weekend. It's coming in on Monday. And this is why these agendas, back to the other item, I almost quasi read the one that comes in the mail, but I already know that's not the actual real agenda. So thank goodness Jeff does it. He puts the final agenda up on the thing, and I religiously go and get that agenda, and that becomes my new agenda. Every meeting we have, like, the numbers don't match because we've got these extra orders and different things. So it's got to stop. And these things really have to be quote unquote emergencies. And I think this should be the rule for now, item 4. And if we find out it's weeding out all kinds of real emergencies, which I doubt, then I think you could soften it to make it 2/3 or something. But that's how I think 4 makes the most sense. 3, I don't get item 3. 3 seems convoluted to me, so I think 3 goes bye-bye.
I was looking up the language itself so that we could consider what it would look like to actually amend it. So right now, the matter requires the urgent and immediate attention of the council. We could add language and constitutes an emergency. I think that would satisfy the spirit of the order. We also have to add in language that indicates that piece, that no member objects. We have to figure out where to add that in here too.
Right, but we also have to add that no late files should be added to the regular agenda, period. They should not be printed online, they should not be added to the one in the mail. They should only be considered at the meeting as a potential late file. Because it won't even come on to the meeting unless there's no objection. Because the only way you can get an objection is to have it come up at the meeting. And you're already after the 48-hour anyway. You're out of the window. I mean, we had one late file come in at 5:20 one night. I mean, that was ridiculous.
We've had them come in after 7 o'clock.
That was absolutely ridiculous.
I
It was the
don't-
worst abuse.
I don't disagree, but I also think in the spirit of open meeting law, the goal is to give the public as much of a heads up as possible if in fact it is very likely it will be taken up.
But if you're already violating the open meeting law, because you didn't give 48 hours notice, you're not meeting the open meeting law by putting it on there late.
No, but I can see how in the gradations of right and wrong, it feels more right to add it in 36 hours in advance rather than handle it at 9 o'clock at night
Well,
when it hasn't ever appeared anywhere. I see, Jeffrey, your hand is up.
Yeah, just wanted to note that the beginning of starting to show late files on the website with a notation as far as the date and time that they were put in is a result of having read guidance from the can't remember if it was the Secretary of State or the Attorney General's office, but one of those offices had a guidance that basically directed that if things are expected to come in after the 48 hours, the public should be given the notice as soon as possible.
Councilor Bacon?
thank you. So I read that advice, but that advice is contradicted in other parts of the open meeting law. So it really is contradictory advice. I mean, basically what we're documenting is after 48 hours, we added an order. It was not anticipated. That's why it's a late file. So that in and of itself is violating the open meeting law. So I understand what you read. I have read the words that you read, but if you read other parts of the law, it contradicts that advice, which doesn't rise to the level of law. It was just guidance. So I don't think we can stand on it if a problem comes up. And most of the things that have been late files were unnecessary at the end of the day. They were not emergencies. They were not explained. We haven't followed our own rules. So I'm very warm to item 4. I think they should be rare. And lots of times we're getting late files because people gave us information we asked for 2 weeks before or a month before at the last minute, which I think is unprofessional.
Given the scope of the agenda to come, I wonder if it might make sense to give item 3 leave to withdraw and to table item 4 in order to actually work on revised language that we want to propose,
What? Well,
so that we could actually, I mean, I prefer to be able to say, this is actually the change that we're going to make, what language we're redacting, and we could spend another 15 minutes on that, but I also know it's already 7:50, and we have many other things on the agenda for later. I see Councilor Devine's hand, yes?
Yeah, I agree with you. We're getting to the end of the month of June. We're going to go on recess. So I think maybe it would be better to wait. And then when we come back from recess, maybe have a meeting and iron out all the words. I definitely agree with number 3, giving leave to withdraw.
Well-
But it is the end of June. We have one more city council meeting left.
Or we could table it, and if we get to the end of the meeting and there's time, I'm happy to go back. I'm just nervous that we're gonna get to 9, and we're still,
I just,
In item
I would just
9.
as soon table 3 and 4,
okay,
since the maker of 3 isn't here,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera.
okay.
How about if
Yeah.
we table them both for now, and hopefully we can circle back?
Okay,
I'll motion to table 3 and 4.
second, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay,
Motion to take up item 5.
second, all in favor? Aye. McGrath Smith ordered that a new rule 6H be added to the city council rules, proposed rule 6H. Any member of the council, upon being recognized by the president, may pose a question to be answered by the law department. I'll speak just as the maker of the order. This came out of a particular, case in council, like so many of our rules do. They come in response to things. And it didn't even involve me, but I thought to myself, I always want to be able to have access to my city solicitor. I don't want other members of council to not allow me to ask a question if I feel like I need to ask a question of my legal counsel, right? Our charter says that they answer to all affairs of the city. I am one of those people. I should get to have access to them in a meeting. So it was around being able to guarantee that all members of council should have access to being able to ask and receive an answer to a question. Councilor Bacon.
So I read your order, and I think I recall the context from which you wrote the order. But I will say this, I have never seen the law department opining on so many things and tilting decisions in the city council to the extent that I've seen in the last year or two. It's almost gotten to the level where the representatives out of the legal office are sitting there as a member of the council, which they are not. They are consulting to the council. And in the same way that a planning board has a hearing on a matter and then they send the recommendation to us, it's a recommendation. The same holds true of opinions from the law department. They are providing us with an opinion, with a recommendation, in some cases with their personal perspective on a matter. But what I'm seeing it used as, this is my opinion, I'm seeing their opinion being used to put weight to another opinion to achieve an outcome. And I do not believe that is the role of the law department. So I prefer that under rules, I do agree there are times when the law department should weigh in. Ideally, they should know what they would be weighing in on so that they've had an opportunity to A, research it, B, have had the opportunity to discuss it perhaps in the office and have a reasoned answer to the question. But questions being asked on the fly, ad hoc, I don't think are going to serve any of us well. And so if we really need a legal opinion, I think we should be filing for the legal opinion or requesting it formally through the council, not just verbal on the microphone. So, and I feel strongly about that, but that's my perspective on it. I appreciate where you're coming from on it, but I think it's a slippery slope and it's not been working well.
Thank you. Councilor Jordan?
I think the reason we don't have it too loosey-goosey today is because of the fact that often this is related to unprepared counselors. You have the opportunity to pick up the phone and call the law department. And I use you metaphorically because I mean any counselor, all 13 of us, have an opportunity to call the law department well in advance of any of the meetings to go over any legal advice you need. That we have to have and disrupt the meetings with this constant opinions on the fly because people don't do their homework in this room, all right, is a little beside myself over it, and I have to bite my tongue almost to the point it's clear off sometimes because a lot of this homework, a lot of this preparatory work could have been done in advance, but because people don't, and now it's, oh crap, I have to take a vote, and now I don't know what to do because I didn't do my homework, and I'm not, you put yourself out there as an example, but I know you're very prepared, so I exclude present company here. This is going on way too much, and this is why if it's a concern, or it's a question where the majority of the body just doesn't know what we should do on a topic, that's why we've had the rule that we vote to suspend the rules to allow the law department to speak. Also, it's consistent with our Robert's Rules of Order. Robert's Rules of Order says that anybody other than a member of the body may not speak unless the body suspends the rules to allow non-members to speak, right? So this is why the law department isn't yet members of the city council, right? So this is why we have this rule. And to now just say anybody, one person, a vote of one, can now delay a whole meeting getting into the nuances of, I have a question, law department, what should I do here? And then they're going to sit there for 10 minutes and give the why and the who and the what as to what you should be doing. If it's a concern of the whole body, then the body should table the matter, right? And ask for a formal legal opinion and follow the correct procedure. If it's that open-ended, then the body should table it and not vote on it that night. But if it's one person, really what they're trying to do is, well, looks like I'm losing this argument. Call a friend, law department, what do you think? Can you weigh in on why we should all be doing this? And I don't know, I'm just gonna put myself, why is Kevin Jourdain wrong? And why should I not be voting the way Kevin Jourdain? Because what Kevin just said makes total sense, but there's gotta be an argument here against what Kevin's saying because he can't be right. And this is what happens frequently at this meeting. And it's like, and a lot of it is just prep. And so people need to be requesting these opinions. They need to be tabling these things. They need to, like, that's the way to do it. Otherwise, I can see the vote of one. Oh, Madam Chair, please recognize me. Yes. Can I ask the law department, this, I've never had more legal opinions on the floor from the law department than this term. And I know people don't mean anything by it, but it's happening. And it's like, we got to do this homework in advance on these topics. Because most of this stuff, it's like, yeah, been there, done that. I researched that 3 months earlier, right? There's very little novel concepts that come in here. But if there are, then the whole body, and most of the time, by the way, even though I think like, I'm not going to say it because I don't want to embarrass anybody because you should have known this. I'll vote. I can't even think of a time when we didn't allow someone to speak to the law department and ask the opinion. Rarely do we ever say no because I'm like, well, give them a break, right? And then they come in and they weigh in.
I've only seen it happen once, but when it did happen, I thought, oh, that looks awful. It didn't look good. It didn't feel good.
Exactly.
And I thought in the moment, I mean, you two are so experienced. You've been on council forever. I mean, what are your combined years? It's like double I've been alive, probably.
I'm not even close to Joe.
No one was close to Joe. But I think coming in as someone who really does do their homework, these rules are still, like, you can interpret them in different ways. They can be applied in different ways. I will say, I understand where you're coming from because you feel like, man, people are always asking the law department to try to overturn what I'm saying. But I think it's also that you've been here forever. You know the rules better than anybody. And you have other people trying to figure out, man, am I being taken to the store? Right? Am I understanding things correctly? How has this been applied in the past? Is this where we should be going? Is this how it's always been applied? And I do think you have a lot of folks on council who are new, who are swimming in, and maybe they need to do their homework a little better, but also some of the stuff you've never run into before. There's always going to be a first time where, I didn't realize this rule about tabling and reconsidering. Okay, this is the first time I'm seeing this in action, right? I do think there's some of that. It's just maybe it feels that way in particular because there's so many new people all at once on council.
Well,
Well, if
Yes,
I may.
Councilor Bacon.
Thank you. So that may be one reason. And I would note, Patty and I have been on the council, I believe, the same a number of years.
I'm longer if you stretch it out.
I think we're both at 16, but we can all figure out the math on our own. But so there's a number of years of experience sitting here in the room. And so I think the issue is there's a presumption that the law department knows the rules better than the senior members of the council. And I would venture to say they don't. And so to see the council, who is the owner of its own rules, the rules to guide our own work, are owned and run by the council, if there's a question about what they mean, there should be this committee to address the question of that. Not the law department to answer that question, in my opinion, because they are our rules unique to the council. They are not city rules, and they're not city laws. So I would just caution us on that.
Madam Chairman?
So hearing some of the
Yeah.
concerns, would we be open to amending the rule to it passing by a majority of council? versus a 2/3 vote. That way, it's not simply one person being able to, at will, just derail and, continue, obfuscate, but provide more of a capacity for them to potentially have their question answered as long as the majority of the council is in support of the question being able to be posed.
Why would that rule be less than any other rule? I think if the 2/3 of the council see the need for the law department to weigh in, we'll suspend the rule, like we always do. I don't think it's been unreasonably withheld to suspend a rule. If there had been some long history of that, then I'd see the concern. I don't see that there's been really any history of that. There's been more a history of the law department twisting our rules.
Councilor Devine?
Sometimes I think when opinions are asked of the law department, that certain people don't trust what those opinions are coming from. And I'd like to, say how educated the lawyers in the law department are. And, Lisa Ball alone went to Penn State undergrad. So I get where you're coming from, especially being on the newer side. And I think Linda's right. We have been on this the same amount of years, just different times.
Correct.
But I really get that feeling that certain people, you could ask, the best lawyer in the country, and they would still disagree with that opinion. So that's just my opinion on it. I don't have a problem with what you want to do, Meg.
Meg?
Yes, Councilor Jordan?
Well, the first thing I'll just say is lots of good lawyers can have lots of different opinions about different
of
things,
course.
right? This is why we have 9 justices on the Supreme Court.
Right.
These are supposedly the most educated, qualified people in the world, and how many 5-4 decisions have we had, right? That happens every day in Washington, D.C. So, but I will say on this, I think the president and I think the law department and I think in our modernization proposal I think we should probably table this and revisit it, because one of the things that we're doing is working to create a parliamentarian, right?
Yes.
So if we had a parliamentarian, we should see how that goes, because if the council has its own parliamentarian, then we could have more, like if they're part of the meeting weighing in on rules issues, it's somebody that we've all selected to do it. The law department, in fairness to them, are being thrown into this because they're the only body right now at this point being called on to do these things. But at the same time, I think the parliamentarian is the answer to likely
Yeah.
bring down the confusion, because the other nice thing with having a parliamentarian is you can call the parliamentarian and you can make your pitch. Hey, I think the rules should be blah, 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 blah. I can call and I say, I think it should be blah, 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 blah. Well, they're going to ultimately weigh in and that will be binding, right? And they're neutral because they're picked by the council, work exclusively for the council, and the whole 9 yards. And, I think if we can help the law department get out of a lot of these internal affairs of the city council's issues, and then we keep them really about global laws and regulations. But most of that stuff, I would suggest to you, it's pretty rare something's coming out of left field on those type of big global issues that necessitate, I need a legal opinion on the fly, right? There's a procurement matter that came up and we don't understand what's our obligation here, or there's a zoning issue. Like that stuff's going to be probably pretty spelled out to you in advance. But if it does, I don't think you're going to have any problem, because if it's something novel or we haven't heard of, or it's out of left field on a legal law, you'll have probably unanimous support to hear from the law department on those things. The reason I think that one incident where we didn't allow the law department to speak was because it's going over these opinions again on internal affairs and internal rules, and then they're going to say what they want to say for 10 minutes, and then if I disagree with it, then we have to sit there and debate why we think they're wrong, and then they're going to debate why they think we're wrong, and it's like this meeting is going to go forever, and I don't think anything productive ever comes out of those situations. And the good news is I think we've worked through this committee to resolve a lot of those issues. Matter of fact, I'm waiting with bated breath when we're going to take up like the Section 22 stuff. And like, I think we've gotten consensus on these issues, like, so we can move forward on these things and putting those in the rules. I think we've made a lot of progress together
And
on
that's the
these
purpose
things.
of the committee.
Which is the purpose of this committee. So your point, I get it, but on the other hand, I think there's some remedies here that will achieve what you want to achieve, and parliamentarian's a big step towards that.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
So-
give that some consideration.
And
too.
I do wonder too, at 8:08, if it makes sense to,
Do you want
to table it and actually to move to 8. If we have time to go back to 6, then we'll come back to 6. But
all right,
again,
I'll make a
I've got my
motion
eye on the clock, and I
Table
know
item 6. I'll make a
everyone's
motion.
come out at 9.
problem.
People start getting tired.
No problem.
So,
Okay, so I'll second your motion to table
Item 6.
item
Item
5.
5.
Okay.
it's Rule 6.
Second, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. And let's take up
So you
item
want to take up
8.
8?
Yeah.
So item 8 is a copy. We can't act on a copy, but we can take it up.
I guess. Patty's, no, she's right. She's made that point before. That's funny.
Yeah, this is why I wanted it to be sent to both. So I guess, yeah, this is where
An
it's gonna,
ordinance.
this is why it's gonna get a little tricky. So the problem is that there are specific changes to charter based on this draft. Although I guess maybe if we take up items 7 and 8 together as a package, we can still consider the charter changes that are in front of us under 8. So if we could amend the motion to take up let's take up actually item 7, 8, and 9 as a package. Because I
I'll
think between
second
all of
that.
those, we'll be able to address these. All right, second, all in favor? Aye. So item 7 was the original, ordered that City of Holyoke shall create an administrative and finance department, said acceptance shall be subject to implementation by city ordinance and any necessary amendments to the city charter. This order shall be referred concurrently to charter and rules and ordinance to be considered jointly, with recommendations regarding implementation to be reported back to the city council jointly. And then there was the Municipal Modernization Act version 1 attached to that. Item 8 was then the second version of that, sent by Jordan and Vacan, ordered city council adopt the attached substitute municipal modernization ordinance, which has, really been redlined and fine-tuned since then. And then item 9, which, goes back to April of last year, from Bartley, Jordan, and Vacan, that the city of Holyoke amends any charter, ordinance, and any other regulations relative to its tax collector and combines the office with its city treasurer, so long as a charter change to appoint rather than elect Holyoke city treasurer is approved by the legislature and Holyoke voters, which it was. So, in front of us, underneath the 8 packet, you have all of the draft charter changes that we will be using in order to draft the home rule petition
Is there an extra copy?
alongside, yes. There you go. Welcome. Alongside the 2 others that are currently tabled in council, the recall provision, as well as the notifications for special meetings. So all of these together, upon the will of the body, would be then combined
Is number 8 on?
at the request of our Representative Pat Duffy and State Senator John Velas into one home rule petition that they can then shepherd through their respective bodies to support our community. Do you want an extra copy, or is there one there? Okay. Number 8. If you don't see an 8 there, I'm sure Jeff could print an extra one for you. Jeffrey, could you print an extra copy of 8 for Councilor Devine and, Councilor Casios has stepped out of the chambers. So just Councilor Devine.
I was gonna say, if he wants to email it to me, that's fine too.
Or you could email it to her, she says.
Is she looking for the order or the entire municipal?
Package number 8 that was in the packets for the members tonight, Patty needs a copy of that.
Yeah, but the whole thing is here.
Because it's handy because it has all of the charter
All of them
changes
together.
proposed.
Didn't we already get that?
She's gonna need that, huh?
We had all of the ordinance
But
changes.
it's in one spot for her, you know,
Yes.
Where is it in here?
in package 8.
I
This is
know,
all
but
of the
where
charter.
in the package is it?
These are the charter changes.
All of them. This is all of the charter changes required in order to pass the ordinance changes and make them real.
Oh, so this has okay, this has the ordinance changes.
Oh, you're right.
This is ordinance changes. Where are the charter changes?
Good question.
That's what I want to know.
Oh, okay, now I see where you're going, Linda. All right. Took me a
I
minute.
think I attached those to 7.
7.
Oh, you
Okay.
were 7, okay, let's see, what's in 7?
Let's go hunting. Yes, you're right, Jeffrey. Thank you.
Oh, there it is.
Okay. So under 7, the first page is an act amending an act relative to the membership of the Soldiers Memorial Commission. So section 1 of chapter 44 of the Acts of 1979 shall be amended by deleting the reference to city treasurer. Section 2, it says, so much of chapter 44 of the Acts of 1979 and chapter 113 of the Acts of 1929 and acts and amendment thereof, in addition thereto, as an inconsistent with this act, is hereby repealed. Section 3, the general court may make clerical or editorial changes of form only to the bill, etc. So this is in response to the fact that the city treasurer is named in our charter as a member of the Soldiers Memorial Commission.
So my question on that is, if it becomes a treasurer collector, why then would that person not be able to be members of any of these things? I
Should
mean,
we-
what is the
Let's ask.
reason why they need to be
Yeah.
removed? I'm not,
As opposed to a title change.
right.
Solicitor Bissonnette, can you explain why the proposal here is to remove it versus
In
just
both cases.
change it to combined treasurer collector, change the title?
In both instances.
I don't think it makes a difference. If you want to keep it as collector treasurer, that's certainly within your powers. There is a subsidiary legal question relative to the Soldiers Memorial Commission because it's created under a special law only for the city of Holyoke prior to the institution of the 1966 Home Rule Amendment to the Massachusetts Constitution. Predates that, only applies to Holyoke. Those are usually the two indices that say it can be fixed by ordinance and not need a home rule petition. Legislature is treating it as either or, so truly an option for the cities. But purpose of the Home Rule Amendment was to rid the legislature of having to continually deal with these matters best left to local ordinance, and most of them they have, but as members of the council well know, there's a limit to how much home rule actually exists in Massachusetts. But you certainly can go ahead and make collector treasurer the substitute for just the treasurer here if you wish.
Can we do the same under mayor, under the section on the mayor? Because right now we have a 3-step, mayor's disabled, clerk, treasurer. And that's being deleted too. But why would we delete that? Why not leave it the way it is
I mean,
too?
on the Soldiers Memorial Committee, are we still on item 1?
Treasurer, he just answered that.
So,
That it could be,
but before we move to the second one, can we just clarify,
Oh,
is it the will of the body that we want to keep, not take the proposal, not delete the reference to city treasurer, and instead ask for a new legal form that asks for them to just rename the position to combined treasurer collector?
well, if the treasurer has been participating on this, I'm thinking there must be a reason why. So we should keep it. But unless it's a defunct thing and it's just words on paper that have no practical effect,
Hi, I was hoping you
Then-
were going to wander over. Our
then
treasurer
I guess
just
we're
walked
just
in.
talking about.
Speak of the devil and
Semantics.
he appeared.
I was just about to ask
So
Jeff
Lori,
to
do you
message
go to
you.
these
Can you
meetings?
come in? Because we want to ask a
Yeah,
question.
Oh, good to know.
You have no social life like us.
We're looking at the change
Well, chop chop.
because he understands late files need to be emergencies.
That's right, that's right.
Okay, we're looking at the first proposed charter change that looked at deleting the reference to city treasurer underneath the membership of the Soldiers Memorial Commission.
Yep.
The question is why delete it versus just change the title to combine treasurer collector and keep them on it.
Sure. So my understanding is the intent of that language when it was first crafted. And I know that reference is 79, but as folks know, the original enabling act from the 20s was that the mayor and the treasurer were two of three members of the executive branch, elected officials. So what this would do is actually replace the treasurer with clerk, so that you would still have the two remaining executive members, or the members of the executive branch that are duly elected. Clerk Leary said she would have no problem with that. I have attended meetings, mostly during times when they need quorum, and I stay in touch with them. But prior to that, it had been very rare, from my understanding, that the mayor or the treasurer ever attended those meetings. It was just listed as ex officio. So that was the reasoning behind this particular order. But again, I was listening to some of the conversation when I came up. That was the reasoning why. If it was to be treasurer collector instead, that's also fine. I think that was just trying to look at all the things that related to the treasurer being an elected position, and then where that plugged in, and this would seem to be one of those areas.
So, Chair. Meg?
25th is a paving finance.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, so right now,
So,
the current
Yeah.
language, if I could just read it into the record.
Thanks, Patty.
Thank you so much for joining us, Councilor Devine. Says, thereby is hereby established in said city an unpaid commission to be known as the Soldiers Memorial Commission of the City of Holyoke, hereafter called the Commission, to consist of the mayor and city treasurer ex officios, and 7 other members, 6 of whom, as long as available, shall be residents in said city who are honorably discharged or released from active service. So, however, I hear what you're saying, but I'm not sure that actually matches what we have in front of us, because we have the removal, but I don't see language in this in legal form saying that they would actually replace it with the clerk, although that makes more sense to me than what we've been discussing. Yes, Councilor Bacon.
so the position is not replaced with the clerk from what I can see for the Soldiers Memorial.
Not
but
in here.
If the mayor was disabled, that was
Yes.
stated that it would be the clerk and the treasurer would be eliminated. So my question is, or my point is, I don't think it matters how the person arrives in the position. If they're the treasurer, they're the treasurer, whether they're elected or appointed. So I know back in the day they were elected, but I'm not sure the breakout for the job was because it was elected or because of what the job was if a question came up. And to me, treasurers deal with money and the clerk doesn't. And the commission might deal with money on time to time. So to me, it would make sense to have the money person with the mayor if they have to go in. So I would like to amend this to say, change city treasurer to treasurer collector. And we have to get that, well, we don't have to get that done, that's assuming that happens.
By changing the reference to city treasurer to combined treasurer collector. Yes.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I just wanted to offer a point of clarification, which actually speaks to what you just said. If these ordinances don't pass and we just have a treasurer and a collector, then it would be the treasurer, in this case. The way the ordinances are crafted, the legal form that I believe everybody received earlier this week, there's a caveat that says, any other place within our ordinances or code, if it says treasurer or collector, it's meant to be treasurer collector. So I think that would apply here. I
Okay.
completely agree with what you're saying, and I feel it must just have been a Scrivener's error that the clerk's name was left off of this, because I personally spoke with her prior to the initial filing of the Modernization
soldiers-
Act.
for the
Yes,
soldiers'
yes, I
memorial?
did. Yeah, so I think that must have just been a Scrivener's error in this legal form. But I think you're coming to a fine solution without even needing to address that on this particular order.
All right,
Or
well-
this particular charter change. I would like to address the acting mayor piece separately.
All right, you wanted to do one at a time? I'll make a motion to amend it by deleting to changing the reference to treasurer/collector from city treasurer.
I'll second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, let's take on the second page. And this shift takes it from removing the treasurer and instead naming only principally the clerk as someone who can step in, whether by reason of sickness or other cause, the mayor shall be disabled from performing the duties of his office. He would love to see that language changed so it's more neutral. May designate by writing filed in the office of the city clerk to act as mayor, or in case of the failure of the mayor to make such designation, said city clerk shall perform such act as mayor for the duration of the mayor's absence due to said disability. The city clerk shall, during the continuance of such disability, have all the rights and powers of mayor, except that the city clerk shall not, when so acting, have the power of removal, unless hereto in any instance authorized by a vote of the city council, nor any power of appointment, unless such disability of the mayor has continued for a period of 30 days. And then subject to the approval of the city council, nor power to approve or disapprove any ordinance, order, resolution, or vote until within 24 hours of the time when it would take effect without the approval of the mayor. In case of such disability of the mayor continuing for a period exceeding 60 days, the city council may at any time after the expiration of that period declare a vacancy to exist in the office of the mayor.
That's the current language, minus the treasurer?
Yes.
So I guess my question is the same again. Why would we not want mayor, clerk, treasurer, if for some reason the mayor's disabled, the clerk can't do it? And we've been there before. So who would be the third tier?
So this isn't just wearing my hat as the current treasurer, as an elected official, just kind of as a citizen as well. I think that, and I do appreciate often where the council comes from when we talk about the separation of powers and who's responsible. And I think that in this particular case, we're talking about acting mayor. It should be an elected, this is kind of me just speaking personally. The acting mayor should be an elected official. So I think in the case, if you had the clerk couldn't do it, then perhaps it should fall to the city council president.
Well, that was going to be my next question.
That would make somewhat more sense. I think, the scenarios where this really happens is if the mayor is going to be out of town and unavailable. That's been my experience more than incapacitated, although you could see that as well, like if there was a medical emergency or surgery or whatnot.
Right.
I've served as acting mayor. I know Clerk Leary has served as acting mayor in our roles. More often it's the clerk than the treasurer. It's kind of gone back and forth. It's administrative. It's pushing paper along. It's if a contract needs to be signed, if warrants need to be signed, if, things that require a wet signature of the mayor and the mayor's not available,
Right.
that they would have
Right.
the authority to do that.
So in the case of a disability, it's been clerk, treasurer, or treasurer, clerk.
Correct.
I'm not sure which order.
Yeah.
In the case of a vacancy, it's president of the council.
Correct.
So maybe it would make sense to say clerk, president of the council, so that you still have a secondary if you think it should not be an appointed person.
Yeah.
Because the president of the council is also an elected person. Of course, we'd have to see that, well, the president's already on the hook if the mayor's
Yeah.
gone, but not if only temporarily disabled. But it would leave a backup if for some reason the clerk couldn't do it.
Yeah, I think that makes all the sense in
So-
the world, and I would just offer one recommendation when you amend this language is to put it in that order that you just said, that it goes automatically to the clerk if the clerk also finds himself unavailable or disabled, then it would go to the city council president.
Yeah.
Because again, this is really like administrative work during the day. It's
Right. Right. And I mean, I can't remember, because this is really about disability, this language.
Yeah.
It's not somebody out of town for a couple days, right?
Should we consider, since we're changing the language, actually put something here, or should we fix it? I don't know, I'd be interested in the law department's suggestion to the word disabled. You know,
Right, 'cause does that mean out of town? Because I don't
because I
read
think
it
that's
that
actually
way.
I think what you're
That's-
saying is actually what is occurring. Like you see this in state government. Governor goes to Africa
And
for,
designates.
for 2 weeks to a trade mission. There's different the lieutenant governor
As a
then takes
designee.
place while he or she is out of state for an extended period of time. This happens regularly here in Massachusetts.
Yeah,
So
this is really focusing on disability.
but I mean,
not-
I will say, it does say wherever by reason of sickness or other cause.
Yeah.
But, you know,
Meaning an accident.
the mayor shall be,
Yeah.
I almost feel like disabled is not the right word there. It's almost like unavailable, right? Or disabled or unavailable?
Unable to perform their duties.
Unable to perform the duties, yeah. I don't know if, I'm just wondering if now's the time to fix that so it's a little clearer.
We've been joined on Zoom by Tessa Murphy-Ramboletti.
Oh, so we have to do the
Jeffrey,
rule
do you
thing?
have the document that I have to read? Is it on the,
But I do agree with
Shelf somewhere?
the suggestion from Rory and Linda, mayor, clerk, president, you know, because now it's mayor, treasurer, clerk, right? So we just, yeah.
You
I
got
think
it.
treasurer's given first preference.
because we are now moving to a hybrid committee meeting with one of our members on Zoom,
They can pick.
entertain a motion to take a roll call vote that for the purposes of this meeting that would be applicable to all motions received, to refer items to committee, remove items from the table, place items on the table, package items together, comply with items, or suspend the rules unless there is an objection.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right.
And welcome. Do you want to weigh in? I saw your hand up. I wasn't sure if you wanted to be recognized or wanted to weigh in on this conversation.
Well, a little bit of both. Thank you for recognizing me. I am so sorry that I'm late. I did have a previously scheduled work commitment this evening, so I'm happy to join now. But I raised my hand and then took it down very quickly because Councilor Jordan mentioned pretty much what I was going to just suggest is like if I think you said something like if they're not able to perform their duties. I was going to say if they don't have the capacity
Right.
to perform their duties for, I don't know if you guys want to say like an extended period of time or just like over a certain amount of days. That was like something else I was going to throw out there, but I don't know if that's getting too much into the weeds, but I was just going to suggest that language of like, they can't, they can't perform their duties as required for a certain amount of time. So that was all. But hi, everyone. Thank you.
So I'm hearing two, friendly amendments that we might pose to the law department for revised language. One, adding in like a tertiary step where if the clerk is unable to perform the duties of the mayor, those duties then fall to the responsibility of the city council president. I'm also hearing that we are hoping that they will change the gendered language in here and also review the term disabled and consider what better language might be for that.
One more item?
So,
Councilor Bacon and then Councilor
Thank you.
Jordan.
so my president was through the chair to the president. President, are you okay with being added as the third go-to person rather than having no go-to person should the mayor be unable and the clerk, for whatever reason, unable. And I only bring that up because we actually had that happen you know,
Yeah.
with the mayor's situation.
Yeah.
So it's unlikely that it could happen,
Yeah.
but it could.
No, you're absolutely right, Counselor Bacon. And I think, I mean, I'm good with, as me, Tessa, as the president, I'm good with it. I know what I committed to. I wouldn't have committed to this role if I didn't have the ability to step in that capacity if needed. But I also recognize that, you know, my job's a lot different than the traditional 9 to 5. That being said, I think I would hope perhaps that anyone who does say yes to the presidency knows that in advance, that that's a possibility. So I don't know if that means like maybe we should add something to the, I don't know if it's like I don't think you need to add something to the rules necessarily to like let a president know, but like,
Right.
I would hope that whoever throws their name in for president understands that this could be asked of you. You know what I mean? So I don't know
And
how we
in this particular
that.
situation, it would be time limited to 60 days because then a vacancy would be
Right.
declared and there would have to be a special election. Well,
Is
it would
that
go
all-
beyond.
Is that all spelled out somewhere?
Well, it says, in case of such disability of the mayor continuing for a period exceeding 60 days, the city council may at any time after the expiration of that period declare a vacancy to exist in the office of mayor.
okay.
And if it's at a certain point in the election, then there would be a special election.
Right.
So I mean,
Right.
it would exceed 60 days because it would take longer to do the election, but, I mean, it would be,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be the whole term if, say, the mayor never came back. As a
Right.
theoretical.
Yeah, and just
Worst
me
case
personally,
scenario.
like, right, like, yes, like, I'd be okay with it, but like, I would hope that whoever kind of signs up for this job knows that, you know, you might have to make that kind of a commitment, but if there's a way for us to, and I know that in the past that hasn't always happened, so I don't know if there's a,
Right.
you know, I don't know if there's a way for us to define that more in the president's role. Maybe that is in our rules. We could, you know, like a future discussion of like
Yeah.
defining what the president's role actually is. But yeah, I completely understand why you're asking.
Okay.
One more clarification.
Yes.
I believe, and Rory, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe in the current rule in the charter, it says the mayor almost gets to pick, right?
That's correct, yeah.
And I think we should, in this one, not make it really
Yeah.
the mayor's discretion.
Yeah.
That it truly is the clerk
Unless-
as the
Correct.
number two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the president is the third. This way, the mayor can't bypass the clerk and go right to the council president.
So
And
you're saying,
unless Tessa would object to that, I think that's the spirit
No,
of it.
no, I think, yeah,
Yeah.
you're saying if the clerk is unable.
Right, it is the clerk
Agreed.
unless, otherwise it becomes the president, yeah.
Yes.
So
Right.
it's a clear 1, 2, 3,
Yes.
right?
and then, you know, next term, we're gonna have a vice president, but
There you go.
So we could pretty easily fix the language by just saying in the first sentence, whenever by reason of sickness or other cause the mayor shall be unable to perform the duties of the office, the mayor may designate blah, blah, the clerk. And then add the sentence at the end, should the clerk be unable to assume these duties, then the president of the city council.
Yeah,
I think it makes sense to move forward and ask the law department to clean up the language and provide us a new legal form.
that sounds good.
Is that an official motion?
That is my motion
Okay.
to amend, as I said, I don't have to say it again, right?
No. So to add the
It's
language
on
around
tape.
the mayor to be unable to perform their duties, and to add in, if the clerk is unable to perform the duties of the mayor, then it falls to the city council president, and also to remove or to make gender neutral his and he. I will,
Second.
yes.
She seconded it.
Oh, you second? Yay! We have another person who can second things. This
I know.
is great.
I'm sorry. I'm here. I'm ready to second all the things.
Love it. Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
You have to do roll call.
Oh, that's right.
Oh.
Thank you. You're right. I was in the motion. I was in the.
I know you got in the habit.
Yeah, I'd gotten into the habit of moving forward.
I
Okay.
just like to keep you on your toes, Meg.
I appreciate that about you. All right. So roll call vote. Murphy Rumboletti,
Yes.
McGrath Smith, yes. Faken.
Yes.
All right. And let's move to the. That's it. For 7. Okay.
Now,
I wonder if it.
I-
Yes.
on 7 were the changes that were relating to 9.
Yes. Yep.
So, under 9, this to combine collector treasurer right now is only sitting here. Because we have always operated under the rule that there can only be one order acted on in a committee. So this order needs to be sent to ordinance, because ordinance does not have this order, but we're done with it now if we've done the charter work. Correct?
I think we can mark it complied with.
But it needs to go to ordinance. It needs to be sent to ordinance because it's charter and ordinance. But it got sent to charter first.
I think the ordinances have already been addressed in other orders, which is why I think we can mark it as complied with.
So I respectfully disagree.
Okay.
Because I think we should move this to ordinance so that ordinance can do this.
And we have to move it to council, and council can choose. I mean, council has to send it, right? I don't think we have the capacity as a body to send it to their committee. We have to send it back to council. Council can then decide if.
But we have sent, things have gone from public safety over to ordinance. And what I'm suggesting is this has to go from charter and rules over to ordinance.
Well, your committee report would be to send it to ordinance.
Correct.
But to Meg's point.
Yes.
Council has to agree with that.
Right. But I'm just saying that's how we have done things that have gone to public safety that have to also be addressed in ordinance.
I think, though, the point that they're trying to make, Linda.
I understand the point.
Oh, okay.
Counselor Murphy Rumboletti, I see your hand.
Yes, sorry. I had a clarifying question, 2 clarifying questions. Are we on item 8 now?
We took up 7, 8, and 9 as a package.
Yep. I was
8
listening in the car to that.
Yes,
So
8 we've made our way through. I'm sorry, 7 we've made our way through. 7 is a copy. So the only thing we can do is really mark it as complied with and move it back to council.
Yep.
And then we were just discussing what to do with 9.
9. Okay. I didn't know if it was 8 or 9. Okay. And then I'm sorry for my second follow-up question. The item that we just voted on, was that to be referred to committee?
Do you mean council?
Council.
I'm sorry. Is it
No
committee?
worries,
Yeah,
because we took them
council.
up as a package, and you're right, we did the initial kind of line level amendments. So maybe at this point, just to be clear, I'd like to make a motion that we move the charter change, legal documents here as amended, as a recommendation to council.
Okay. I
For
was
item
also
7.
just trying to figure it, so I'll second that. Or I'll make the motion if that's what's needed, but
Second is
I
more
was
than
also
fine.
just,
Under item 7.
okay.
Under item 7.
Sorry,
Any
and-
further discussion on moving it to council with a recommendation?
Not for me.
Now what are you on now? Complied with?
For 7, moving it to council with a recommendation. We looked at we approved the amendments, but we never said we were actually going to move it to council with recommendation.
Oh, okay.
So just to be clear that that's what
Okay.
we're doing, that's why I've made that motion. And Councilor Murphy-Ramboletti has seconded it. Any further discussion on that? I know it's sort of clerical, but it does make things
No,
clear.
I hear you.
Yep.
Okay, and then roll call vote, Murphy-Ramboletti?
Yes.
McGrath Smith, yes. Bacon?
Yes.
Okay, now on 8. I think
Okay.
it makes sense for us to mark this as complied with, because everything else that we have falls underneath 7. There's no other
can't-
language under 8, and it's a copy
Can't do
anyway.
anything with a copy.
Right.
Right.
Agree with all that. I think some additional orders are going to have to be filed because if there's other charter changes being proposed as part of the municipal modernization ordinance, and the question is, what's the vehicle to do that? So I'm happy to, for tomorrow, file the ones that certainly I'm advocating for as part of that. So, yeah. I mean, we have the ordinance package, which is an ordinance.
Yeah.
But we need a charter package for any charter changes. And there was more than just who's sitting on the Soldiers Memorial Commission. I can assure you that. So, you know, there's some other changes in there, like section 39 is one, you know, relative to the law department. I want those 2 sentences changed on there. I'll file it as an order for next week so we have something to act on. I wasn't sure like how we were going to act on the charter changes.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to use one of these other orders, but I think that's probably somewhat problematic when you've got multiple items floating between these committees. I think
Yeah.
Linda's made a correct point on that. So I will file what I need to for charter changes. And I would suggest if anybody else has charter changes, they should file those as well.
Right, so right now, we've amended the original Modernization Act that was referred to this committee, filed by you and Izzy and President Murphy-Ramboletti. That's what we've amended tonight. What's in ordinance is the copy. So those would have to be merged.
I think the copy is just.
At this point, the copy is just,
But
you
you-
can say complied with because there's nothing to do with it.
Right, exactly.
If you want, is that what you want?
To Kevin Jordan's point, I think that what we voted on under 7, they certainly apply to 8. There may be other changes that folks want to see happen related to 8 that, again, need to be moved as an order in order for us to be able to act on it.
Agreed. I agree with you.
Okay.
So, right, so I'm back to my original, do you want to vote on complied on 8?
Yeah, I think so, because it was sent as a
I'll make
copy,
a
it's something we
motion
could
it's
do anyway.
complied with.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Counselor Bacon?
Yes.
Counselor Murphy-Ramboletti?
Yes.
Counselor McGrath Smith, yes.
So on 9, we have taken action under 7, which
I believe
Really,
that we can say that
I think
item
went
9
with
is
9, but whatever.
complied with. I think it came to us under several different orders.
Right, but I mean, I think it could properly, these that we talked about
Totally.
tonight could have been properly taken up under 9.
Agreed.
But I also think we have to send 9 back to council and say the charter changes are being recommended under some other act, but I would prefer to recommend them under here. And then we're asking this to go to ordinance to complete the ordinance changes. And if ordinance finds they're already made, fine. But this order is a standalone. And it should keep moving in the proper order.
Okay. Well, I think we have the language to your point. So how do you want to motion it to go back to council with
So I would-
recommendation
I
that the
would like
changes
to
have been made
say
that need to be made in charter?
That item 9 has been complied with for charter changes, and we are referring the order to ordinance to ensure that the ordinance changes are completed. And then ordinance can look at it and handle it in whichever way the committee thinks is correct.
I see Councilor Murphy-Ramboletti's hand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess so. Or there was an ordinance, as you guys know. I'm not telling you anything you didn't know. The ordinance committee did meet last, or was that this Monday? The 9th?
Thursday.
And was that Thursday last week? Oh my goodness. I have no concept of time anymore. So yeah, Monday was the budget hearing. Okay, anyway. Ordinance, my understanding was that in the ordinance committee meeting last Thursday, changes were made through the order that was filed for the act, and that is what was sent to us by Jeffrey yesterday morning, maybe? Yeah, yesterday morning. And so I guess I'm just a little confused because I thought that ordinance had approved those changes to be reviewed, like to be sent out to everyone so that folks can vote on the 17th at the meeting. And I guess I want to keep continuing. If I know that Councilor Jordan has concerns about Section 39 and, with the charter, and I respect that, and I totally get it. I think I'm hoping that we can at least vote on ordinance changes on the 17th so that we can hopefully pass some of these changes before we vote on the budget. So that was just, I don't know if anyone has clarification on that. I might be confused. I just thought that at the ordinance committee meeting last week, we did make those, we took a lot of time to go through those changes. So I don't know, I guess I'm just looking for confirmation or clarification.
Meg?
Yes, Councilor Bacon.
Thank you. So there's more than one way, certainly, to accomplish something. The package that was mailed to us is an all or nothing package. If this is not sent over to ordinance, then if the entire package is not adopted, the ability to combine the treasurer collector also is not adopted. This is a standalone order that has been complied with relative to charter changes in this committee. And I think it should be sent over to ordinance if there is the wish to have this combined, regardless of whatever else may or may not happen.
Well, I think on our
I'm
end,
just saying it's two different paths.
for sure.
That's all.
I agree.
Will of the committee.
I feel like
Here we
I think there's agreement that we can mark on our end that it's complied with. I think we should send it with our, with that to council. And then I think again, because it's two different paths, I think we have to see what council does to know, do they want to accept this as complied with, or do they want to send it to ordinance? I think we have to see what the other conversations are in council on the 17th.
Well,
to
right, but it's
know-
up to us to request them to do that because the order says ordinance changes. Now, it's under Bartley's name, but I'm a filer on this.
Sure.
Along with Kevin. And so if you want to keep this alive, then we send it to council with the request that it gets sent to ordinance. If you want to kill it, you send it to council and say it's complied with. I mean, that's basically the function of the committee. Like if public safety wanted to kill the other orders, they would have just said complied with. But they didn't. They sent them to council and said they should go to ordinance because that's the only way something would happen with them. That's all I'm saying. But again, everything is the will of the committee. But that is my request, but certainly it's a committee of three and it takes two votes, so. My motion was that it's complied with and we request it to then be sent to ordinance. But there's no second on it yet and somebody can make another motion.
I see Councilor Jordan's hand.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about a little, just for a moment, so we're all tracking. hopefully we all understand each other and our needs on this rather robust package. As I see it, we have an ordinance package and we have a charter package. And in the Kevin view of how this will go down is these will all be voted on in the same evening. Not we're going to pass the ordinance package on one night and some point date in the future we're going to vote on the charter package. And then the third thing I need is for those who are in the power around here, I also need a communication to them from the mayor in writing that says, I will approve this whole package of all the ordinances and all the charter amendments, and it's all going to be approved, because I can't have a scenario where he then cherry picks this stuff afterwards, because we're all operating in good faith that if some of us are holding our nose to approve or disapprove of certain sections,
Yeah.
we're voting on this and he's signing off on it all as one big package. And there might be some things in here he don't like, just like there's things in here I don't like. So I just want to make sure we're all tracking in the same way, and we got to get to the point of the packages overall a yes. And I'm just wondering, like, where's going to be the charter package for the 17th, if that's what we're going to, now, I will say this, yesterday morning, we have now received the most current iteration from the ordinance committee with the work of the law department that came from Thursday's meeting. I am still going through that because there was a number of things that the law department was charged with adding, and I'm now going through that. And the charter package, I'm going to, whatever I don't see on the table yet, I'm going to be filing for the 17th. So presumably, those things are not going to get voted on the 17th. They're probably going to send their way over here. I don't know what the will of the body is on that. But, that's coming. So we got an ordinance package and a charter package, and it's all one big bundle of love. And then going, at some point, if passed, going to the mayor for his stamp off. So that's how I see this playing from the Kevin seat on my perch over here. Thank you.
So I have a procedural question. Were these two items that are in front of us tonight voted at the last, when did these amendments, how did we get these charter amendments? Who initiated these? Is this, because
Yep.
they don't appear,
They weren't
other
filed.
than substituting treasurer collector, that they were necessary. So this was initiated by the law department to bring us into compliance with the charter relative to combining them?
Yeah.
That's where these came from? Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Thanks.
And initially we had two, again, orders, right? Two paths. So you're right, it could have been under 9, it could have been under 7, so we ended up taking them as a package. And 7 in particular, those things were named. The language wasn't there.
Right.
But the charter
The charter
changes that would need to happen were there, initially naming that specific change that we knew we had to make already based on actions council had done. Now, as a follow-up question,
And President Murphy
yes.
Ramboletti has her hand up.
I'm going to
Just so
ask
you know.
one question to Kevin Jordan, and then I'm going to call you, Councilor Murphy-Ramboletti. The only thing that I've heard you name that is an additional charter change that you want to see is the sentences that you had given to ordinance around the law department. Is there anything else that you're looking for? Because when I did reach out to the law department earlier this week, they believed, looking at the charter, that there were no other required changes that needed to be made in order to match the ordinance changes to the charter.
I'm still evaluating that to give you an
Okay.
honest answer. I don't think there's a radical number out there outstanding, to your point, but I'm still going through that package to just kind of
Okay.
synchronize that with the charter and just making sure I feel comfortable with all of those. But you're right. I don't think there's a big package of them. Most of it is encompassed in ordinance, but yeah.
Then I think that just, especially because 8 was sent as a copy,
Right.
if it can be sent as an order,
Well, I'm going to file the orders, so they're actual
then
orders
we
on
can
an
have
agenda.
that conversation.
Right.
And if the timing is important, then it may be something that we're discussing in full committee. That's got to be the will of the body.
Will of the body, right.
Yes.
oh,
Counselor
Sandra,
Murphy
for a
Ramboletti and
while.
then Counselor Bacon.
Thank you. So just logistically, like wearing my president's hat, right now, it's Thursday. We have a council meeting on Tuesday. And I'm not gonna lie, voting on charter changes at the same time as figuring out all of these ordinance changes that have definitely taken up a lot of time and discussion. I'm like wondering if, do we even like quite literally have enough time? Because folks are gonna want 48 hours and I don't expect the law department to be working on this weekend. So if that means we are not going to, I don't know how we would be able to vote on a charter change, like in general, at this point, if the ordinance changes are not gonna happen without the charter changes, I'm just trying to figure that out, because, we're at the end of the fiscal year. We've all been working a lot on this, and now, I'm not gonna lie, it like sort of feels like, this is gonna get pushed to the next fiscal year. So, do you guys anticipate, like, maybe I need to call another special meeting together so that we can vote on charter changes as well as the ordinance changes? I think I'm just trying to, like, understand what we think realistically the timeline's looking like, because I just, you know, a lot of these changes, it would behoove us to make these changes before either voting on the budget or voting or starting a new fiscal year. So I guess I'm just wondering if, I don't know, I'm feeling a little discouraged right now. So I'm just trying to figure out what you guys are thinking as far as like meeting legal requirements goes. So I don't know who that question's for. I guess the chair or Councilor Jordan.
Yeah, it sounds to me like we effectively have almost everything that we need in order to move forward with the conversation. It sounds like there's one charter change conversation left. I don't think it's, I mean, it's certainly ripe for conversation, and it could be a lengthy conversation, but I don't think the change itself in charter is a complex one,
It's 2 sentences.
you know, and we have a draft of it. I think folks could also read that draft and then come prepared with counter proposals or with modified language, and that can become the basis of that conversation for Tuesday.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm hopeful, but I'm also, I think probably Jeffrey logistically might be having the same thought as me of like, when should we be like blocking off a time for us to have another meeting before a certain time? So either one of you, if you'd like to, we can connect offline, like about the scheduling aspect of it.
Absolutely. I also want to recognize our treasurer, if you don't mind. And then you also wanted to speak, yes?
I wanted to ask.
Oh, you did.
I wanted to Tessa's question, when it's my turn, I'd like to take a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, all I was going to offer up is, so my understanding in talking with the law department is they felt a lot of the ordinance changes, because there were conversations on multiple tracks, that the ordinance changes wouldn't conflict with the charter. I understand and agree and, you know, file and that conversation to take place. The idea all along, my understanding was that from, I can't speak for the mayor, but I can just say from those of us on the kind of this side that have been working on this package collaboratively with the council, is that they would be taken up at once. So that is something that absolutely should be honored, and that it's he's even, my understanding is he's holding off on some of the recent home rule petitions until this package passed, because he wants to send them all off at once, whatever the will of the council is, in order to do this larger package. And I think that the legal form that was submitted earlier this week is, to your point, Councilor Jordan, is a real testament, and a great way to look at compromise, right? With many different folks coming together to kind of try to find something. I also know that tomorrow it's being filed for the meeting, as was discussed in ordinance, an actual updated budget page for the city council that gives that $10,000, which is the number that Councilor Jordan had requested, in outside professional services. And the ordinance language speaks specifically to the ability of either the Director of Internal Audit, or in an extreme case, if the city council needs to contract either with outside legal service, a parliamentarian, whomever they see fit. So absent that charter change, which I know that conversation still needs to take place, so please don't take me, think I'm trying to dismiss that. I'm certainly not. But that those things are all part and parcel, and they're in that package. And additional, budgetary documentation was going to be filed in order for that to be in effect starting on 7/1. And I do think that is a very important thing, because obviously we have to set the budget. We all know that. That's not a surprise to anybody. And we're really trying to get these changes in place so that we can start the fiscal year fresh, and make sure we have the right people in the right positions, and we're organized in that way so that we can, really accomplish everything that we've been talking about now for quite a while. So what that means as far as what you can discuss tonight, what you file and discuss at the full council, that's way outside of my purview. So I'm not offering any suggestions on that. That's completely up to the council. But I just wanted to provide a little bit of, information with what we've been discussing so far. And
Very helpful.
yeah.
I was just going to note, Madam Chair,
Yes.
that it was announced today that we're going to have a special meeting on the 23rd relative to the budget.
Yes.
So, I don't think there's anything that would preclude, if we're going to be down here, if we need a night two of, certain components to do this package, if it's not all ready for prime time on Tuesday. So maybe we avail ourselves of that as well as an option.
Okay, I see Murphy Armoletti's hand.
Real quick. Thank you, Kevin. I was looking at my calendar and remembered that too. So if you guys are open to that, that could be an option. And I have one thing I just wanted to add. I have spoken to the mayor myself about what you and I have discussed, Kevin, just about, knowing that none of us are leaving this with everything we wanted, and really voting on something together as a package. So I didn't mention that before, but I do, we have spoken about it, and I think, I don't want to speak for him, but we've had that discussion, and I think he's on board. And if the extra special meeting we're doing, we may even have another special meeting because of the certifying free cash. So we'll make it work.
Oh, good. All right, great.
On number 9,
My motion was that it's complied with for charter and rules and to send to ordinance for the ordinance piece.
could I suggest a friendly amendment that we mark it complied with a recommendation to refer if needed to the ordinance committee?
Sure.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It is 9:07, and I would love to
Adjourn.
adjourn where we are, and there's
We'll have more opportunities
many
to
other
discuss these items.
things that need to get taken up in charter and rules. So we will have another meeting soon, although I have not scheduled another one for June because I've been, every time I've attempted to set another date, I've been told, you know, like there are like very few days in June right now they're not spoken for, that they're not maybe keeping open for free cash or maybe keeping open if we need another day for budget. So that being said, we will certainly come back to a number of meaty issues coming up on the Turner Rules jacket soon.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
you all.
Thank you, Meg. Thanks, Counselor Bacon. Thanks,
Thank
Counselor
you.
Jordan.
Yeah, have a good night. Take care.
You too.